Good afternoon and welcome to this Product Lifecycle Management Value Stream Deep Dive webinar. We are recording this session. If we could move on to the next slide. So indeed, this being recorded. So indeed, by participating in this webinar, you consent to being recorded. We will also be using Slido again as our interaction tool, and instructions on how to use Slido are on the next slide. So before we get there, just to what we're going to be covering today. So I'm your moderator, Joel Zwiemer, Change Management Lead here at EMA. We'll be hearing a little bit from Carl Hamilton, the value stream owner for PLM, supported by Hannes and Melanie. Unfortunately, could not join us today, or the value stream managers. There'll be a little bit of time after this general introduction for questions and answers using Slido, instructions to follow. And we have we'll spend indeed the bulk of this session looking at the different products. Now the overview will be a little different than maybe that you're used to from dedicated webinars on these products or also from our system demos. The intention here is really to look at the collective of the product and the collective content of the value streams, how everything connects, and what we're actually looking to build. So rather than look at products very much individually, it is indeed about looking at the different connections and the different things that have come up in the context of the value stream on its different IT products. Then there'll be 25 minutes in which we'll be looking at some more, answering some more of your questions in Slido, and we also expect indeed to have a few words from some of the EMA business owners for some of these products. Ivo Klaassen, head of our veterinary division, and Deputy Executive Director Alexi Nolte, head of our Human Medicines Division, and Zaide Frias, head of the Digital Business Transformation Task Force. Do stick around to the end, because we'll tell you a little bit about how to keep in touch and how to stay informed on the value stream, and we'd very much like to have your feedback through a quick poll. So the aim for this webinar is to really look at the goal of the network portfolio's PLM value stream, how the value stream really delivers on the network strategy and its goals, what work is being done, and indeed how the different products, and in this case IT products, not to be confused with medicinal products, in the value stream connect. So that's what we're looking to be taking you through to this afternoon. Then indeed, the instructions to join on how to join us on Slido. You can do it using the QR code on your mobile device, or you can simply go to slido.com and you type in #PLM VS-QA. You will also find that link at the bottom left of every slide. So if you want to join later, you can always indeed navigate to slido.com and you'll find the access code there. One other point maybe to say about Slido, there's questions, and indeed maybe a lot of you will know the drill, but you can ask your own questions, but you can also upvote people's questions, and indeed those are the ones that get a lot of votes. We will tend to prioritize those in the live Q&A. So with that introduction, I'd like to hand over the floor to Carl Hamilton to talk about the value stream as a whole.
Thanks, Joris. Good afternoon, everyone. I just first of all want to say a very warm welcome to this Product Lifecycle Management Value Stream Deep Dive session, or at least a deeper dive into the value stream. It's really great to see so many people attending today and with very high registration. So I realize that the audience probably comes from a very different level of understanding. Some people are probably quite close to this, and maybe for some people it's quite new. But regardless of your level of knowledge, I really hope you find this a useful webinar in connecting some of the dots between the different products and the value stream, and really why we're doing what we're doing and what the vision is that we're working towards. My name is Carl Hamilton. I'm value stream owner. And effectively what a value stream owner does is aim to understand the longer term strategic, but also the shorter term needs of the agency, its network and its stakeholders, and to try and optimize our technology delivery and capabilities for a given scope. And in the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about what that scope is. So just to go back a little bit into the background of the creation of a value stream and what a value stream is. In 2021, EMA started its agile transformation. And while agile is not the focus of today, it's important because the reason we did this agile transformation is we wanted to have a more flexible, transparent and adaptive way of delivering, and also of aligning business. By business, we mean all of our stakeholder needs and the technology investments we make. And that's in the context of a more and more changeable environment, dealing with crises, but also a very fast and evolving regulatory, legislative and technology landscape. And to do that, we also created 5 value streams. And I'm not going to go into detail on all the value streams today, but you'll see product lifecycle management as one of 5 value streams. And effectively, the 3 value streams in the middle, the research and development, PLM and monitoring, represent the full life cycle of a medicine, right from the clinical trials and research stage through to the evaluation of a medicine, the authorization. If we just go back a step, sorry. And then onto the monitoring, so the post-authorization monitoring, including shortage monitoring. And then we have 2 other value streams that focus on corporate and enterprise capabilities and communication, but also technology, lifecycle management, and really securing the infrastructure and the data that we hold. So now if we move to the next slide, it gives a bit more context to where the PLM value stream fits in this sort of end-to-end of the medicine's life cycle. And you'll see in the next part of the slide that PLM lives in the middle of this whole flow between research and development, scientific advice, and it deals with all the processes around getting those medicines on the market, making sure that any variations, renewals, etc., are dealt with, that we capture the data related to that, and we reuse it throughout the entire life cycle. It doesn't exist in a silo. There are lots of dependencies across the value streams, and we work very closely with the other value streams to deliver that. And there'll be further webinars in the future on the other value streams as well. So on the next slide, we've broken down our vision for the product lifecycle management value stream, and really the ultimate goal of what we're aiming to achieve is for the benefit of public and animal health in the European Union. That's at the core of what we do. All the business outcomes that all the product teams are going to tell you about today are effectively driving towards that simple goal. If we click through to the next part of this here as well, as I mentioned, we've got a lot of different stakeholders, and what we're aiming to do is provide valuable regulatory services, but also reliable data and information. And that is for citizens, healthcare providers, including veterinarians, regulators, and industry. So we have a very wide customer and stakeholder base that we deliver for in this value stream and across the portfolio. And effectively, how do we meet those stakeholder needs? We aim to deliver end-to-end product lifecycle management procedures and data exchange with all of our partners and stakeholders. And they really fall around 3 key themes. If we just move forward with the slide, we aim to be data-driven. So really relying on capturing data once and reusing it throughout our entire life cycle and with our partners. We're aiming to bring efficiencies because we know the regulatory network and the capacity that we have needs to be optimized. We want to make sure that it's as efficient as possible and colleagues can focus on value-add knowledge-based work rather than manual work. And we want to make sure everything's digitally connected, that we don't build things that work in silos, and that all of our end-to-end flows and that life cycle really speaks to each other, and things click for all of our stakeholders. So on the next slide, you'll see this vision as a statement. For colleagues who've been involved in this work before, this won't be new to you. But what I wanted to do is just show you the vision that we set. And this was set together with network colleagues and also EMA colleagues to really give us something to rally around. All the product teams today are working towards achieving this vision for product lifecycle management in the European Union. So on the next slide, you're going to see what we call our target operating model. And effectively, overarching this entire thing is we want to create a smoother and more coherent user journey, and that's for all of our stakeholders. We realize in the past there are a lot of different systems, a lot of entry points, a lot of different processes, and what we want to do is converge them as much as possible, automate them as much as possible, and really make sure that whether you're from industry, you're a regulator, you're a citizen, you've got a smooth user journey to get the information and services you need. And at the start here, the majority of the data and information we deal with obviously comes from developers of medicines and certain medical devices. And the products you'll see today focus around the capturing of data and information for regulatory processes. So when we need to have an application for a medicine to get on the market, that we effectively support the application process. We provide application forms for that. We help with authoring electronic product information. We help with submitting the dossiers of clinical information to the agency and bringing it into our systems. Then in the second step, we're also aiming to provide systems around the validation, assessment and analysis of that data. So we have the dossier, we bring it in, we want to make it available to the colleagues who need to do the assessment of that data. We build case management systems, which you're going to hear about, to really bring efficiency to that entire process and bring collaboration to that process. And then in the third step, you're going to hear a lot today around the storage of data and information using agreed standards. And we'll try to keep the acronyms to a minimum, but you're going to hear things like the ECTD format for dossiers, the FHIR standard for data exchange. You're going to hear things like ISO IDMP, of course, for the medicinal products. But effectively, we're making this transformation standards-based for interoperability and data exchange throughout the entire life cycle. And then the final step, which is one of the most crucial, it's about having that data, that approved data, that reliable data and information, be it on products for veterinary, the human domain, and really making that available to the rest of the life cycle. So reusing that data and leveraging it for patients, citizens, regulators, and using standards to exchange that data. So as much as possible, we have a single source of truth and that we effectively bring those efficiencies and have safe and reliable medicines on the market for citizens and for veterinary use. So on the next slide, I want to talk a little bit around the value stream objectives and the strategic focus and how we effectively translate our network strategy to what we do in the value stream. And if you'll see in this slide, if we just move forward a moment, the agency and the network have a strategy and it evolves around a number of themes. And one of those themes is around data analytics, digital tools and digital transformation, but also innovation and sustainability of the network. And effectively within this value stream, we're trying to deliver towards a number of business outcomes across that strategy. So this is also a thread running through the session today. So we move forward with this slide here. You'll see we've translated that into objectives. And you're going to see these objectives translated into the products that you're going to hear about today. And I've already touched on many of the elements that you see here in these objectives. So in the next slide here, I want to take you on a little bit of a journey through the value stream. And it's a very brief journey, but it's effectively a compass, let's say, through today's session, because I wanted to give a little bit of an overview of how the products connect together at a high level and how we intend to deliver towards that vision. And each of the product teams is going to come back to this diagram in their section to explain how their product actually delivers to the business aims and the business outcomes, but also how they connect within the overall system. So the first part here, and I promise not to use too many acronyms, but I'll just explain here effectively what we're talking about. We have a number of different data sources for the storage of centralized and non-centralized product data, and you see them here at the top. And what we're working towards is the full implementation of PMS, or our product management service for human medicines. And we also have the Union product database for veterinary products. And we're working towards this master data set, effectively our single source of truth at EMA, and eventually gradually more and more for the network. And this data source feeds all of the regulatory processes from safety monitoring, clinical trials, right through to the life cycle of medicines. And when we have that data there, we want to make it available as a hub to all of our services and also to our partners. We do that via what we call the Iris Dataverse. If we click forward a moment, and that's effectively a technical component, but we just wanted to show that it's a hub that disseminates this information as one of the ways we share this information. So once we have that information, where do we leverage it for some of our regulatory processes? Well, many of you will be aware that we are building web-based electronic application forms. And you might ask, well, what does it matter having an application form? But effectively, that application form is reusing that structured data that we hold on a product. It's helping industry to create applications for new medicines. And we can capture that data in a more structured way than we've been able to do in the past. And we want to bring that data into the system, have it there for assessment that's reliable and accurate, and actually use it to feed all of our regulatory processes. And once we have those application forms together with all the clinical and non-clinical data, we package that into our ECTD dossier or VNIS dossier, and that gets submitted via what we call the gateway. And once we have that data in, of course, it's time for the assessment to start. And we, within the value stream, also provide electronic submission review tools. And you're going to hear today about some of the standards that we use for the electronic submissions and how we're working to support global and European and global interoperability via those review tools and via the standards that we implement. And we want to work to provide that tool towards network and obviously EMA colleagues as well. You're also going to hear about a very critical piece of the puzzle in terms of the approval of centrally authorized medicines and also in veterinary use cases. It's our case management system, which you'll know as Iris. And you're going to hear about how we're using this system to move all of our regulatory procedure management, including for the expert panels on medical devices, onto this system so that we can be more efficient, modern, user-friendly, have more collaborative assessments, and to prepare us for legislative and regulatory changes in the future. Then we are also building another component, which we call the product data management user interface. And what this will do in the future is it's going to give a view into the product data we hold. It's going to allow industry to submit their Article 57 pharmacovigilance obligations here in the future, so that we have a more modern and integrated way of doing that. But it's also going to allow for the enrichment and correction of data, and it will also eventually allow regulators to also enrich and correct that data and leverage it. So this is a key part of ensuring that we have reliable data that we use for our entire medicines life cycle and for safety monitoring post-authorization. A couple of other areas I just want to touch on as well is around the electronic product information. And we just went live with the first pilot APIs, I believe earlier this month. And we're effectively working to implement this system to capture more structured electronic product information. So basically the paper leaflet turning into a more digital format that we can then leverage for patient and healthcare providers. And then last but not least, this fourth part of the puzzle from the previous slides, it's about creating portals to make sure that information is shared with patients, with healthcare providers, and with other stakeholders. And the Union product database and the veterinary medicines portal are already live, and we have ambitions to build a similar portal for human medicines in the future. So I appreciate a lot of acronyms, a lot of connections, but when all the product teams present, this picture should become a bit clearer. And as I say, it forms a little bit of a compass about how we're working to achieve this target state at a high level and how it supports the business outcomes that we're working towards. Just on the next slide, I want to just dip back into Agile very, very briefly because Joris is going to tell you a little bit more later as well where you can find more information. But effectively with this Agile way of working, we're working to incrementally deliver business value rather than the big bang projects that we typically did in the past. And we typically work in quarterly planning cycles. And at the end of each planning increment, which is quarterly, there's a system demo. The next one's on the 19th of December. And that's where anyone can join and provide feedback on any of the products and what you see. And that's taken into account by the product teams. You'll hear concepts like minimum viable product, But the main focus here is that products get developed over time. So we aim to enhance and adapt each of the products you'll see today to meet emerging and future business needs. The prioritization of features takes into account input from network, the product owners that you'll meet today, but they also take into account stakeholder feedback from important groups like veterinary stakeholders groups, and also from the human medicines groups and industry as well. And then finally on this slide, we have a roadmap that supports all this delivery. We don't want to go into the roadmaps in detail today, but they are available on the EMA website. And then we have more detailed webinars on each of the products when they're reaching critical points in their delivery. And that's where you can actually do a full deep dive into each of the products and what we're doing and how we're delivering. So finally, and one of the most crucial elements, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the many, many colleagues who work hard towards these outcomes I've outlined here. You're going to meet a lot of them today, but you're not going to meet all of them today. We've got the value stream leadership team, the value stream managers who oversee the delivery, from architects, we've got product owners from EMA Network, and we also have our business owners, some of whom you'll meet today as well. We have a change management team who work hard to make sure that these sessions, but also all the transition and change is well managed and that you receive the information you need when you're adapting to these changes and leveraging them. And then we've got a large network of network subject matter experts and industry subject matter experts who really help to inform and progress with these products, and not forgetting the development teams who work extremely hard behind the scenes to make sure these products meet expectations and business needs as we deliver. So with that, I'll pass back to Joris for the next part of the session, and I'll come back later in the session. I hope you enjoy the rest of the overviews today.
Thank you very much for that, Carl. So we have, before we go into the individual products, we did have some time for a general Q&A, specifically on what Carl just talked about, and I will share my screen for that purpose. So just to be clear, I starred a few questions. There's other questions coming in, and please keep them coming. However, those questions seem to be quite product specific, so we'll save them for the second Q&A. And I've starred a few questions that look like they are a little bit more general, and indeed that I would indeed invite the team and Carl to answer in a more general sense. So the first one is about, indeed, I understand that Iris and Cytomed are EMA specific, but the PLM value stream applies to the network. How does it work for NCAs? And there was a second question in the Q&A that related to that, but indeed talk a little bit about how PLM as part of perhaps the network portfolio, Carl, indeed also links to and applies to NCA work and NCA systems.
Yeah, great questions, and really important ones for today. And obviously each of the product teams are going to go into a bit more detail on how this applies to network and industry and EMA. But many of the systems that we're presenting in the value stream today touch not only EMA, but also network. So if you think of something like PMS and UPD, that's a central master data management repository, but that informs a lot of the systems that we use and a lot of the procedures that we manage. And of course, we work on the assessments together with network. So those systems serve network in that capacity as well. In the future, we want to make that data, of course, more and more available to network and enrich it with data held by the network and vice versa, so that we can really leverage these for efficiencies across the EU medicines regulatory network. And then, of course, we've other systems like EPI, like Iris, and many others like the electronic submissions and the review tool that are also used by network as well as EMA. And I just want to also mention here, network are very heavily involved in this network portfolio, right from the strategic level, where they give us guidance and inform the strategy and the portfolio roadmaps, but also in the form of product owners from network and also subject matter experts. And I think the second question, which has jumped a bit here, the third, yes, it sits between R&D and monitoring. So how do we manage those dependencies? We obviously work very closely together. We sit on our portfolio board together. We obviously have domain architects and platform architects who help to make those linkages and data architecture. And we talk to each other a lot. So when we look at something like shortage monitoring, we're aware that some of our products in PLM need to capture data for shortage monitoring in the future. And of course, then we work to prioritize the features needed to, for example, gather manufacturer data that will work towards the shortages platform in the future. So that's a collaboration that's really implied in this way of working. And when we do our quarterly planning ceremonies, all those teams actually come together and are accessible to each other. So that's maybe a little bit of a flavor of how that works.
No, indeed. So there's definitely cross-value stream dependencies and cross-value stream collaboration, work, and coordination. I'm just browsing through the questions. Those seem to be the ones that indeed really apply to the overall picture. I think to the value stream level. All the other questions, again, keep them coming and keep also giving them a thumbs up, and we'll get to those after we've talked about the individual products. And first up, and I'll indeed invite Katerina to take over the screen share again, so we can go back to the deck and talk about electronic application forms.
Thank you, and good afternoon. My name is Noel Diamond. I'm the network product owner for the electronic application form, and I am here today with my colleague Christina from EMA, and where Christina will talk to you about the EF itself. I will try to focus on the errors coming in and going out of this EF. My goal is to give you an overview of the role of the electronic application form in the life cycle of the product. So we are here in a value stream, and it makes sense to be in a value stream because the EF is just a vessel that transports data. But from where and where to are the questions that we want to answer here today. So our starting point and our end point is always going to be PMS. PMS is the product management system that is exposed to the network, and that includes EMA. And even though EMA is using Iris as a little bit of a staging ground here, our data comes from PMS. And we're using this because anything that is a change of data of the product that requires a regulatory evaluation under the variation regulation is going through this EF. Now, our vision is to load the data from there and to provide a user-friendly data input layer, meaning a web form that gives you the ability to indicate the changes that you want to do, and not just the present and proposed free text changes that you know today, but we have this little yellow arrow that goes up to what we see here as the product data management user interface, or for short, we call it product UI. And we integrate with this to give the applicant the ability to take the data that comes from PMS, and while he's doing that variation, to create high quality ISO IDMP compliant information. So it's not just a mass of fields or these fields that you know today from XDV and PD, but in the future, you will have the ability to change this in a structured manner using what the PMS teams are developing and reusing things that other teams are also using. So we're all having this one big product UI. And in this case, for our case, we're integrating it with the electronic application form so you can indicate your changes. Now, this EF is, as I mentioned before, just a vessel of information. So your proposed product. And this proposed product is the thing that we want everybody to know. So another big goal of us is to reach consistency across IT systems. And that means EMA, NCAs, RIM systems, PMS, all of these should take the proposed product that is inside the EF. And if you follow the yellow arrows, they're going through your ECDD, your review tools inside a case management system. Now, everybody has those. EMA will talk a lot about the RPM for Iris today, and you will hear more from this. But if you follow the NCAs, there are all big case management implementations going on. And the goal is, what the training that we provide is to read the data coming from the EF, which is why we are using a message standard here from HL7, and evaluate this data. In the end, this data also still is in the product data management user interface. So there will be some sort of trigger where we can say, and the important thing is that the data coming into the case management, the proposed product, in the end is also going to be the proposed product that goes back to PMS. Now, this is a full circle, and this is the vision that we have. And there are going to be a lot of tools that allow this full circle, and this will not be achieved overnight. This is a long-term vision, and each of these errors require dedication and they require time. Some of these we have already implemented, so we are already reading quite a lot of data from PMS, but some of these are going to be part of implementations coming over the next years. Now, to focus on the EF itself, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Christina, who will tell you exactly the goals and why we're doing this.
Thank you, Noel. Indeed. So if we look a little bit deeper, what is our vision with EAF and what is there to come? So of course, as Noel mentioned, and as Carl mentioned earlier, we want to streamline all these systems. And of course, we can start by streamlining our electronic application form usage. So we'll have a user-friendly data input layer, and this will be for all types of regulatory applications. So for marketing authorization applications, for variations, and for renewals. And of course, we're talking about human and veterinary where applicable. And we want to maintain consistency in the IT systems, and we're doing this through providing a high quality ISO IDMP compliant information and data, which can be reused and pushed further down into the consuming systems. And we're doing this by creating these web-based forms for these product applications. And then if we look at a little bit more of the key changes, so we are replacing our interactive PDF application forms that have already been in use well over 10 years by new web-based EAFs. As mentioned, we'll be using ISO IDMP FHIR compliant structured data. Some of the data that is already available in the form, in the web-based form for human variations is already of course, is already ISO IDMP compliant, but we will be implementing more structured data fields in future. And of course, all of this together will allow us to have more streamlined and simplified processes. And then if we move to the next slide and have a little bit of sequencing of the epic. So unfortunately, I'm not going to tell you when we will do this, but how we'll do it. So you may be already aware, we have provided into production environment over a year ago a human variations application form. So this is for centrally authorized products. It's a minimum viable product at the moment. We'll be improving it, we'll be enhancing it. The next things what we will do is we will bring the nationally authorized products into that form, and then we'll be working on the marketing authorization application form first for humans, for veterinary, and we're also working in parallel with this on providing an API, this electronic connection to the different systems where you can feed data from your RIM system directly into the EAF. And eventually we'll be also working on the renewals form and the veterinary variations form. And if we have a very quick look at the business value. So of course, this will bring us more user-friendly forms, good quality data, standardized entries. So it will be easier to access and process and validate that data. We'll be able to reuse that data in end-to-end processes. we're able to integrate our systems better. And of course, there will be abilities to do more automated validation and processing. And all this automation will be then reducing errors and discrepancies. And finally, if we've got some frequently asked questions. I won't go through these now as we're kind of come to end of our time slot here, but we'll have time for Q&A afterwards. And please do post any questions that you haven't had answered yet through on this slide through the Slido. And I'll hand over to my colleague Marcos to talk about the PMS and product data management system.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christina. Hope you can hear me clearly. So yeah, I'm here as the PMS product owner. Veronica, unfortunately, is not able to join today, but hopefully we also have Dino here, the network product owner. So what we wanted to talk about today is, as you have already seen, this is a diagram that Carl has presented, and also Noel has also provided some hints on what's PMS, how it is used. But as you can see here, we have also talked about the data that is coming to PMS. So it's coming on the top there, you can see SciAmet and XCVMPD. So for the moment, these are the two sources of information for PMS. We have already migrated the data from SciAmet, and we are keeping this updated every time there is a change. And we are already working on migrating the data and maintaining the data from XCVMPD into PMS. We will be mainly focusing on how this data is then fetching the IRIS dataverse, and from there EAF can consume the data, but it's not only EAF, but also other systems like, for example, inspections, parallel distribution, etc. You can also see here, and it's part of the PMS project, is the product data management user interface, or as we call it in short, is the product UI. The product UI will be used also, for example, by the EAF for structure changes, but it's not will be only used for that, but it's also to maintain product data that is not related to regulatory procedures. So, for example, when there is a change on the QPPV or in the pharmacovigilance system master file, those changes are not verified or validated, or they don't need to have a variation behind. So this will be able to users will be able to use the product UI to update this product data. Obviously, you see also here a component which is the file adapter. So whenever there is a message sent through the product UI to PMS, we need to have a component that is able to convert this message into a PMS or a IDMP compliant message. This is what we call the file adapter. So this is in a nutshell, how we close the circle between the PMS, EAF, the product UI, and also with the two sources of information that we have right now, which are SciAmet and XCVMPD. In the next slide, we have the PMS vision that we have already shared. So you know that we are building PMS because we want to make available for human and machine interaction a structured, a standardized, and consistent authorized product data, so the European regulatory network can use this data. It will not only be used, the PMS data, by regulators and industry. We also want to make it available for every stakeholder that we have out there. So, for example, European citizens, other organizations like, I don't know, for example, European Commission, WHO, everybody that wants to have access to product data can do it through PMS. And it will not only contain regulatory, but also non-regulatory procedures. So, for example, those changes on QPPVs, which are not considered regulatory procedures. Key changes that PMS will be providing, it's mainly the way that we are going to store the product data. It will be done in a PMS database with a new standards and new formats. So this is something that PMS will change. We also have the delivery of ISO IDMP compliant structured data. So we are able to have these standards. Everybody can speak the same language. We can identify correctly the medicinal products, and this is going to provide a huge value to the network. And last but not least, we are also going to have a user interface and an API connection, so everybody can access the data that we will be having in PMS. In the next slide, we have as well some of the sequencing of the epic. So, for example, you already know what we have completed is the CAP data migration to PMS, so the centrally authorized data coming from SciAmed is already in PMS and is already used by different processes and by different systems. We also have the PMS API. For the moment, is for internal use, but all our SMEs have already conducted an UAT and they have provided some comments, so we will be able to put this live as soon as possible. The ongoing work that we are doing right now, so we are working on this product user interface on the view pages. They are mostly finalized, and hopefully we will put them into production. We will give access to the users in a short term. We are also working on the, as I said, on the PMS API. For the moment, again, it's only read access only, but for external use. And this is going to provide also a huge benefit to the users because they will be able to get access to their product data. What we are also doing is working on the product user interface, but on the write or the edit capabilities. This will allow users to update their product data and keep it up to date as soon as we fully open the user interface to the users. Also, something that is very, very important for the users, we are working on the PMS and XMPD synchronization, which means that we want to have XMPD and PMS synchronized, so any change that is done in XMPD is also propagated to PMS. What are we going to do in the future? So we need to start discussing with the SMEs and with the network how the verification process for the product data is going to be handled. So if NCAs will be involved, how EMA is going to be involved, how applicants will be notified whenever there is any verification of their data. This is something that we will start discussing as soon as possible. Also, something that we will be doing in a short term is starting migrating the XMPD data into PMS. This will allow users to start using the non-CAP products, for example, in the EAF, but also for other processes that might take into account the PMS data, like shortages, for example, or inspections. We will be migrating this data in the near future. We are also working in the, as we said, in the product UI connection and also on the PMS API connection with all the security and access management in place, giving access to the users to their product data. And obviously, we also want to work on the API, but on the right capability. So not only the product UI can be used to maintain product data, but also the machine-to-machine connection through the API can also be used by those stakeholders that want to connect to the API and keep the data up to date and maintained. In the future, as you know, one of our goals is to decommission XMPD submissions, and this is in our pipeline. Is this something that we want to work? So we can decommission the XMPD submissions, and only PMS is the system that has to be used to maintain product data. This is related to the next topic, the PMS direct submissions, and also we need to have this PMS data validation strategy among the different stakeholders like NCAs, industry, EMA, etc., etc. In the next slide, we have some business value for PMS. So you know that what we want to do with IDMP and also with FHIR is to have a harmonized message a standard that can be used throughout the whole Europe. So everybody can use the same message standard, and we can communicate with different systems. Obviously, we want to have data standardized and consistent. We want to be able to reuse the data by different stakeholders, different processes and procedures, avoiding also data duplication and streamline the regulatory procedures. What we want to achieve with this is we want to have good quality of the data and also data that can be trusted by MCAs, by EMA, and by industry. Having all this, what we will achieve at the end is the effective implementation of the target operating model. So we will be able to manage human medicinal product data. We will be able to validate, receive, and share this medicinal product data. In the next slide, and this is my last slide, we have three more common questions that we receive in relation to the data that is in PMS. For the moment, with the first release that we have done, the data is coming only from SciAmed, so it's only centrally authorized products. But in the next release, we want to put into the system the data that is coming from XCVMPD. So, this data from XCVMPD is provided and maintained by marketing authorization holders, not only for CAPs, but also for non-CAPs. The next question is mainly related to XCVMPD. So, as I said before, EMA is working to decommission XCVMPD submissions because we want to make sure that PMS can be used as the only system to get the data. But until this can be achieved, the current process for submitting the product data to XCVMPD has to be followed. And something very, very, very important for the migration of the data and to keep this data up to date in PMS is very important that MA holders pay attention to the data quality that is in XCVMPD. There are different chapters out there. Chapter 7, for example, is one of the most important ones in this, because there you have the business rules that we will apply to the data migration. So please have a look at this so you have more information on what's the data quality that should be taken into account for the initial migration. And the last question is related to the UATs that we are scheduling right now. We have just had alpha UATs for the product data management user interface and also for the API. And in Q1 next year, we are planning to have a beta UATs to involve more people on the testing of the user interface and the API. So hopefully with the information that we receive from these user acceptance tests, we are able to put all these systems into production as soon as possible. And with this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, Christina. I think it's back to you now.
Thank you, Marcos. So indeed, back to me, but this time for something different. So the ECTD version 4 implementation within the EU. So ECTD is not an IT system per se. It's a specification. It's the rules and guidance how the submissions are submitted, how they are created, and how they're formatted and to be submitted to the regulatory procedures. So we can have a little bit deeper look at what are we doing here and why are we doing it. So move to the next slide. And today we will only talk about ECTD. So really our vision here is to implement the internationally harmonized rules, which is the ECTD version 4, which is the next major version of ECTD. And this is really to enable a modern and streamlined electronic submission process for human medicinal products within the EU region. So this is not just an EMA implementation, this is the EU implementation of ECTD version 4. And here, by doing this, there are some key changes, and these start by giving us some simplification of the maintenance process of the specifications. So those of you who are more familiar with the ECTD version 3.2.2, the currently mandatorily used specification, know that any changes to that specification are very time consuming and also require a lot of changes in many systems to implement them. So with ECTD version 4, we get this new flexibility to maintain the specification. We can streamline and simplify the process to correct and modify information. So for example, if you need to update manufacturers' names with envelope, it becomes much easier and simpler. And of course, it will also give us these new abilities. So for example, reuse of documents across applications. And when we say applications, we're talking about what today is dossiers, so across different products. So there are all kind of new abilities that this new, more flexible specification will give us. Move to the next slide. So how do we do that? So we have, up to today, we have established a subject matter expert working group that has been working very hard throughout this year to update our specification that was published in 2018. We are getting quite advanced in our review of that specification, and we will then, of course, update all the related documents that there are. And this is for the EU specific implementation part. So, of course, this is being done together with, aligned with the ICH ECTD version 4 implementation. Next, we will start planning for our pilot for centrally authorized products. And then, of course, following that, we will be moving to an optional use for centrally authorized products. And following that, we will have a pilot for non-centrally authorized products. Hopefully, it will all be very successful and we will be able to move to mandatory use for CAPs. And of course, at around the same time, we're hoping to implement optional use for non-centrally authorized products. And eventually, the whole specification will become mandatory for all products within the EU network. And here, what I'd like to mention is it will not be a stage implementation as it was with ECTD version 3. So here we're looking really to start the optional and mandatory use for non-CAPs the same time for MRP, DCP, and purely national products. And then move to the next slide. So, of course, we're doing this to get some business value. So it's really important to understand that this new specification will bring simplification of all the lifecycle activities. So it's very flexible implementation, mainly because the granularity will be reduced, but also there is a high use of controlled vocabularies. We're indeed following the internationally harmonized common rules, and there are more validation rules that are provided from the ICH level than with the current ECTD version 3. There will be a single electronic exchange message for the regulatory information. As I mentioned earlier, the reuse and sharing of documents across products and submissions will become possible. And this will in itself, of course, lead into improved quality and accessibility of data. And there will be a hugely reduced maintenance effort for the submission management and reviewing tools, because again, it doesn't require huge coding changes, but because we're basing it on controlled vocabularies, the changes are implemented in a much faster way than they can be today. And then if we look at some of our questions that we have received on ECTD version 4 implementation. So when will it become mandatory? We have published our timeline, and as per the ICH process, twice a year, we will update our anticipated implementation timelines together with all the ICH regions. The next update will be published in January and again subsequently in July next summer. So, and the first step will be to pilot the centrally authorized products. So we will start with a technical pilot, which is starting currently anticipated in Q4 2024. We are already planned some webinars and workshops. And the next thing what we will be doing is a vendor workshop that is now planned to still internally. We haven't published the details yet, but we are planning that this will take place in Q1 2024. And further webinars will be planned, of course, before any implementation or even before the technical pilot to ensure that everybody's ready and knows what the expectations are. And again, what does this reuse of documents mean? As you know, already now within ECTD version 3, you can reuse documents within the same dossier. With version 4, you can reuse documents across different products. And for CAPS, reuse of documents across different products and even different versions. So when you come from version 3 to version 4, it will be possible because we have all the product submissions available in our common repository. For non-centrally authorized products, we will provide detailed information what kind of reuse will be possible and what stages, but we will get down to that level of detail further down the road. So that's all from me today, and I will hand over to Evan. Thank you.
So hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Evan Drusis. I am the network product owner for electronic product information. And as Carl mentioned earlier in the slideshow, that electronic product information aims to enable the creation of the product information documents, that is the SMPC, package leaflet, and labeling, into a more digital format. So with that being said, let's look at the grand scheme. Here in the scheme of the Lifecycle Management Portal, we can see EPI here on the bottom lower half corner, bottom right-hand corner, excuse me. And if we zoom in, we can see that EPI is being fed by the Iris Dataverse. This is specifically the QRD template headings coming from RMS. And we are also being fed OMS data related to the regulator and also the marketing authorization holder. So that data is coming to the EPI portal where the applicant can come in and create their product information documents. And then the regulator can then approve and publish those documents. Once the documents have been published, they are then available via an EPI application programming interface repository. And then that repository can then go ahead and feed third-party web applications or, for example, mobile applications. So moving on, some EPI key visions and key changes. The main vision for EPI is to make up-to-date and easily accessible regulator-authorized product information on safe and effective use of human medicines in all available EU languages for all EU citizens. So some key aspects of this statement is that EPI will be up to date. So that means any changes to EPI can be pushed to the public immediately. And also EPI will be available in all official 26 EU languages within the EU. Now, with that said, some key changes of EPI. EPI will enable harmonized EPI on medicines within the EU. Within the project, we have created the EU EPI Common Standard, which has been approved by all agencies within the network. So we will all be using the same standard for the creation and management of EPI. Next key aspect is that product information will be stored in a FHIR repository and instantly available via an API for downstream consumption. Lastly, EPI will be enable an easier process to find EPI in different languages. And not just in languages, but the searchability of the EPI will be greatly enhanced. For example, you'll be able to easily find specific sections within the EPI document. Those are some key changes. And if we move on to our sequencing of epics, if we start on the left-hand side with our completed work, we have completed the EPI authoring tool for the MVP. With this epic, we have enabled applicants to come into the portal and create their product information documents. Once those documents have been finalized, the next epic is API publishing and consuming. This has enabled regulators to come in and publish the documents and then make them available on the consuming API. Moving on to some ongoing work at the moment, we are currently piloting API for CAP products, NAPS, MRP, and DCP products. We are running a pilot in 5 agencies. This is Spain, Sweden, Denmark, the Netherlands, and also at EMA. So once we have finished the pilot, we will be using feedback from the pilot to feed our next epic, which is API pre-implementation. Where we will be enhancing the portal a bit more and making it ready for business. And once the product is ready for business, we will then go ahead with API implementation. So moving on to some key business value that API enables. As I mentioned earlier, API will make up-to-date product information easily accessible to partners and stakeholders. Additionally, the easy availability of API for different medicinal products through the PLM portal and the API. So API, the FHIR document will be available via the API, but we have also created an API display webpage where users can come in and see a HTML version of the API document and also export to Word. Moving on, we will facilitate the distribution of information according to a consumer's needs. This can be done via the availability of API via the Word document, via the API, and the HTML display web page. Furthermore, information will be accessible to consumers with diverse abilities. So this is the digital nature of API. It will allow users to use screen readers if they have any kind of vision impairment, or they can increase the size of the font to better read the document, for example. And lastly, we have quick and immediate visibility of online product information. So once the API has been changed in any way after a variation, we can immediately push the newly published document out to the public. Moving on to some frequently asked questions about API. The first of which is about the API pilots. As I mentioned earlier, we have an ongoing pilot. The pilot started back in July of 2023 and will end in July of 2024. And we will be using feedback from this pilot to provide guidance for future development and implementation of API. During this API, applicants will be using the MVP product, and it envisages the initial introduction of API at the beginning. This is the creation of API prior to submission, and at the end, publication by the regulator via the API. And at a later stage, API can be integrated end-to-end into the procedure management. Lastly, what we have here for the API pilot is that the API team has created various user guidance available on the API on the PLM portal. We have created a user guide for the API portal, and you can also find a guide to registration, a procedure management guide, and also a video walkthrough of the API portal. Moving on, some key functionalities of API. The API consists of an authoring tool, a repository and application programming interface for published APIs, and associated guidance and business processes. Some key functionalities that we have available for applicants are that they can use a rich text editor to create their API documents. They can add co-authors. They can preview the API, duplicate API documents, export to Word, export to FHIR, and the regulator can come in and publish the document and make it available via the application programming interface. Lastly is our the API link with SPORE and EAF. In the MVP, SPORE is being used such as retrieving the product information section headings. This is the QRD template I mentioned earlier from RMS. And we are also gathering marketing authorization holder information and regulator authority or information from OMS. we are looking to fully maximize the use of spore data, and we will be slowly and in a stepwise approach integrating more spore data into the EPI product. Lastly, the objective is to maximize the synergies with EPI and EAF, which are both part of the same product lifecycle management value stream. So with that being said, I will turn it over to my colleague for the next presentation.
Next is Madalena.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me well. I'm Madalena Duzzamare, and I'm the product owner for regulatory procedure management at the EMA. And in the next slide, you would see again the big picture, and our product, regulatory procedure management, stands in the upper left corner. And this is a very nice context to depict that we are connected throughout the EMA systems, consuming data, and also being a central player in generating new product data. In the next slide is just a zoom towards our product. I'll jump straight away to the vision and the key changes for our regulatory procedure management. Our vision is to enhance end-to-end medicinal product lifecycle management in the IRIS platform for centrally authorized products by improving efficiency, data quality, and collaboration, and thus facilitating easier and secure access to information. It also enables consistency of data in an end-to-end information flow by exchanging and reusing ISO IDMP data across IT systems. The acronyms on the slide was explained already. So regulatory procedure management stands actually for all the procedures during the life cycle of a product as submitted via ECTD or NIS in case of veterinary products. An example of these procedures are variations, renewal, PSUR, and others, just to be more precise. My goal today is to explain the objective and the context of regulatory procedure management and the key changes once the implementation would be completed. So the key changes, or the first of the key changes, and this is actually the backbone of our implementation, is that we are moving to a new cloud-based technology. This is IRIS, is a Dynamics 365 CRM system. We are relying on a user-friendly interface, enabling the user to have a faster, easier, and more secure access to a single source of information. We also, as another change, will have harmonized processes to follow for all product lifecycle with a standardized functionalities for both human and veterinary domains. So we are basically unifying our practices. And I think that's going to be very beneficial for stakeholders involved in work with both medicinal products in the human and veterinary domain. And related to this, we also have are enabled to have better visibility on the case statuses, dashboards, forms around the domains for human and veterinary products for our stakeholders from industry and network. And that would be, of course, in real time. There would be probably less traffic on requesting information, because our goal is to have a pull system where we will enable the users to go and already access the data they need. Another very important key objective, so I need you to stay a little bit on the previous slide, because I'm jumping right to the spore use of master data, and that's something really, really important. Our goal is also to improve security, data knowledge, management and data quality, and that's in great part enabled by the reuse of SPOR master data. And staying here at the SPOR master data and the product data, because you have heard a lot about this already. As you know, we reuse data from SPOR, but we also are one of the central players following the outcomes of regulatory procedures to trigger most of the data product updates. So in the future, there are important opportunities to connect, update, reuse data in various systems. So I'm really happy to be here with all my colleagues, because we are working daily together, and it's important this is visible already. In the next slide, going to the sequence of our work, and these probably new terminology for everyone, this word EPIC. Just to maybe explain again, for us, epics mean just a group of work, and for us would mean a number of procedures that will be delivered in a timeline to deliver and aiming to deliver functionalities for the end users. And in this context, our end users are our stakeholders, EMA, industry network, and of course our patients. Currently, so moving now to the sequence, we are working since 2022 in development of the core process. So basically having our core standardized process for both human and veterinary domains, and additional procedures benefiting from this core process are variations, Article 61.3 notifications, and marketing authorization transfers, of course, as applicable for each domain. We have been testing throughout the whole development process, and this month we are happy to welcome our end-to-end user acceptance testing across the EMA, industry, and network colleagues. And it looks very promising, so we are really happy about this UAT. However, we are now actually analyzing the data, and providing the UAT outcome doesn't reveal major or broken issues. The rollout is scheduled for January 2024. And what is really important is that we will have a rollout with a small subset of human and veterinary products. So even if we developed variations to, well, as an end-to-end and transfers as an end-to-end, we are going to test them for a small set of products, because this is very very stepwise approach, just to enable some learnings for us and to enable a full life cycle testing of products. And that's why we took simple products to enable a full life cycle run in Iris. So this strategy will facilitate transition of EMA's greatest workload, which is on approved centralized procedures, but this the full transition will only take place once in the next epics, which means future work. We will develop PSUR, post-authorization measures, renewals, line extensions, and others. So once that is all done, we are ready to move on and decommission our current case management system, which is SIMON. In the next slide, just walking you through the business value, but I think I've been already very extensive in terms of explaining. But in short, we'll have a single process and system, one platform for all our work in terms of core business, with standardized functionalities for human and veterinary domain. We aim to increase our efficiency, to have an optimized decision-making process, and to reduce our errors. because our new systems have multiple checks, so provide us with safety nets and enable automation. Improve the overall quality of data is we play a part of the role, but it's one of the goals of this landscape in the product lifecycle management, and you have already heard a lot about it today. We'll have better collaboration with our colleagues in national competent authorities. We have more secure and more improved collaboration tools to search, retrieve, share documents, and that's also actually an improved collaboration also with the industry. So we have very good transparency provided by our new system. With this, I think I'm ready to go to the top 3 questions we receive. And first of all is IRIS relationship with other portals. So we use IRIS for the whole product lifecycle. If these products are transitions to the system, so as I mentioned before, we are transitioning just a small subset now, but we will use IRIS for all the procedures in this in each product lifecycle. Today we will use just simple products which will receive only variations, Article 61.3 notification and transfers. However, in the future this is going to be extended, so we will move full life cycles to IRIS and you will be informed accordingly. Other functionalities as ECTD or NIS submission will continue to be performed on separate portals. So there was a question actually, and that's, I hope this one clarifies, as submission is going to stay as is. However, from case creation, we will start communicating with our stakeholders via the portals mainly. Second question relates to products affected by IRIS transition. So the impacted products are actually almost exclusively centrally approved products, as IRIS is a CRM, so case management system for the EMEA. However, if EMEA is leading or responsible for evaluation of other procedures such as SUSA, which include only NAPs, or let's say referrals, which include only NAPs, or other kind of procedures which include centrally and nationally approved products in a mix, the IRIS will be used for this purpose as well. The third question is on notification management. We do plan to have a notification system, and we will rely on the same system of the product contact. However, it's going to be enhanced. After a case is created, the contact person on the product will receive the relevant notifications and will have the freedom to assign a case to another contact. So if they want to delegate, they can do that by IRIS. The notifications also indicate if new documents have been received. At the moment, we have a plan to keep notifications at minimum, because we do have a live scenario in terms of dashboard and visibility, and that will enable the user to find the information they need at any point in time. And with this, I think I'm ready to hand over to Beyhan for the next product. Thank you very much for listening in, and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you, Madalina. Good afternoon, colleagues. I would address now the Union Product Database. Very briefly, the Veterinary Medicines Regulation 2019-6 came into effect in January 2019, and immediately the work has started. The regulation became applicable 3 years later, and called for the establishment of a number of databases at EU level in order to support the intended benefits of the regulation. If we could have a closer look at the UPD on the next slide, you will understand that the Union Product Database is actually the cornerstone of achieving the objectives of the regulation. It is fundamentally the ground of all matters related to veterinary medicines. It also caters for the IRIS casework in the future, and it also considers the interconnections with other relevant union databases. It collates, and also allows sharing of pertinent data on authorized veterinary medicinal products and registered homeopathic veterinary medicines. It has a restricted access portal via the UI and API for national competent authorities. Market authorization holders currently can access the UPD via the UI. Hopefully next year they will be also able to access it via the API, and furthermore has a public website accessible by everyone from the general public. Can I have next slide, please? Okay, our vision and key changes. The UPD provides a single source of information of all veterinary medicinal products approved and available in the EU and EEA. It provides also a transparency on those medicines for their marketing and distribution, of course. For the public, it enables everyone to search and view information on all authorized vet medicines, irrespective of their authorization route. It is also a reliable tool that veterinary practitioners can use to elaborate treatment options, also in case of unavailability of specific product in a particular member states. For the industry, it offers self-service access for certain regulatory activities, like submission of availability status, information on volume of sales, which is a regulatory requirement. It needs to be fulfilled by each market authorization holder on an annual basis, and also enables for the market authorization holders a management of variations that do not require an assessment. Overall, national competent authorities and market authorization holders can submit, create, manage, analyze, share, and publish VMP data in an efficient and timely manner to support the network activities. I'd like to move to the next slide. The UPD went live on the 28th of January with the minimum viable product functionalities, and it has been continuously enhanced in the period, I mean, between the go live in January 2022 and as of today, over 90 post go live business requirements and change requests have been delivered by the team. On a quarterly basis, we aim to deliver several new improved functionalities in view, also in line with the PI planning. And in the second column, you could see what is our goal by the end of this quarter, by the end of this year, to deliver both for the market authorization holders and the industry. For our next quarter, our biggest and ambitious plan is to deliver the so much awaited VNRA supergrouping by both industry and national competent authorities. And hopefully by the spring of next year, this will be in place, which will, we hope that for sure also will be reducing the administrative burden both for marketing authorization holders and equally for national competent authorities. In a not so distant future, we also expect to deliver the, as I said, the API for marketing authorization holders, also for other EU organizations which would like to read from the Union product database. And we also aim to facilitate sending notifications by email in terms of submissions and outcomes of procedures. And if I can go to the next slide. Okay, in terms of UPD business values, I have addressed already some of them, but I would like also to highlight the importance of the interconnections with that the UPD has with the Union Pharmacovigilance Database and also with the antimicrobial sales and use platform. And just to give you an example, there is a UPD product grouping functionality that later enables users to combine the safety information for similar products in the in the Union Pharmacovigilance Database, and also to assist with the EVVet data warehouse queries. In the future, for sure, this product grouping will facilitate also the super grouping of certain VNRAs. The information that the marketing authorization holders provide in terms of volume of sales, it is also consumed by the antimicrobial sales and use platform. So indeed, there are in a number of interconnections. Of course, the Union Pharmacovigilance Database and the antimicrobial sales and use platform, they are not in our value stream, but they are deeply connected. If I can move to the my last slide. Thank you. I can I have all these three questions together? Thank you. Okay. Very briefly, I will address number two, what the companies are supposed to do and submit into the UPD. First and foremost is the information on the volume of sales and the availability status of their products. They are well familiar how to submit variations not requiring an assessment, a third country product names and marketing authorization product grouping, which were delivered not a while ago, are also of a really key importance for the marketing authorization holders and those that are already using them. They can feel the benefit, and soon also others will recognize this. In terms of national competent authorities, it is all the data that it is uploaded. It is also the responsibility of the competent authorities to maintain the product information into the UPD. Some are using the API, but most are using the user interface. We would very much like to see more competent authorities using the API, because for sure it will also assist them at national level, and it will help them to process these regulatory procedures. And if I can give an example of variations not requiring an assessment, in the past over around 1 month, more than 700 variations not requiring an assessment were processed via web interface, where only 15 were processed via the API. So obviously, if more competent authorities invest in the API, the much better and time-saving they will be able to benefit from this. Okay, in summary, it is the member states' obligation to take care for the UPD data and the data quality. It is the company's obligation to submit volume of cells and availability status. Member states are also obliged to submit antimicrobial cells and use data via the ASU. And it is the obligation to subsequently perform the analysis. So with this, I think that I've covered all the items relating to the UPD. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Michael. I'm going to focus now on ExpertMed, which is the expert panels for high-risk medical devices, a process that was taken over from the European Commission with the extended mandate in March 2022. And as you can see, it is integrated in the case management system in IRIS that is utilized for all processes, or will be utilized for all processes within the agency. However, it's a little bit different as it is concerning medical devices only. So it has a very specific purpose. And in specific, what we wanted to achieve with this system is to enable the assessment of the data that is provided to the expert panels on high-risk medical devices and in vitro diagnostics in the context of the clinical evaluation, consultation procedure, and the performance evaluation consultation procedures to enable a robust end-to-end clinical evaluation through the mechanisms provided in the MDR. This is done by utilizing one single system that has the most modern tools available to the agency. So we were changing from tools that were placed for the expert panels by the European Commission as an interim solution to a solution that will last for the next few years, also being able to onboard additional processes like the scientific advice for high-risk medical devices or other processes mandated to the expert panels by the medical device regulation, ensuring that we will be able to use this single platform for the communication within the expert panels, but also for enabling a single data repository where all the data related to these high-risk medical devices that we are dealing with are kept. And lastly, we have improved this accessibility as we have enabled a single login for both internal as well as external stakeholders, specifically the experts of the expert panels. What have we delivered by having introduced this system? So we have reduced a lot of manual tasks. So basically what we had before was communicating via user link, downloading, uploading, parallel conversations, overlapping conversations, duplication of work from the expert, but also from internal stakeholders, as well as communication with notified bodies in case of discrepancies or in case of questions through a very manual and laborsome process, now centralized in one platform. We have, of course, through that improved the user experience, as we can now collaborate on a document simultaneously rather than having to send it back and forth. And we have also improved the handling of the contracts and the payments of the experts, ensuring that we can adhere to all the legal requirements that are put upon us by the financial regulation, but also by the medical device regulation. We have improved the accessibility of data and the protection of the data, as well as the transparency of the information, as we are now able to share with the experts far more detailed on but we can share the data in a much nicer way than we were able to do before, in a broader scope, to ensure that we have the expertise that is needed. I am quite happy to say that for this product, we are live since the 29th of March of this year. It is in use by the EMA Secretariat as well as by the experts, and it has received a tremendous positive feedback both from external and internal stakeholders, as it is a much nicer way to work than to log in and log out of different systems. A few of the questions that we get asked. And that's one thing that I have already mentioned. So we are only handling medical devices. Specifically, we are only handling a very specific subset of class 3 implantable devices and class 2B active devices intended to administer and remove medicinal products. This comes from the medical device regulation, putting additional mechanism of advice and scrutiny on these very high-risk devices. How are we engaging with the experts through this system, as we are handling the full internal and external process of the CSCP and PSCP processes in the system. We are not only handling the collaboration while drafting the output document, so while drafting the opinion, which is then later published for public access, but we are also engaging with the experts in their contractual and financial workflows through the system. And lastly, in the absence of EUDAMED, we are using CircuBC, which is a European Commission secure system for the submission of the information from the notified body, as opposed to and then transfer it into the internal systems, as EUDAMED is currently under development by the European Commission. That was my very high level and quick overview. And with that, I would assume I hand back over to Joris.
Yes, thank you, Michael, for that overview, and of course to all the other product owners. Now, those in the audience that have been keeping an eye on the clock will notice that we're running a little bit behind time. So we will indeed move on to fielding a few of the questions live. However, we received 68 questions in Slido. So we will indeed look at all those questions offline. We will share a Q&A document together with the recording and the slides. Those were some of the questions received with you on the event page. However, what we'll do now is we'll field a few of these questions indeed in the live session. Again, commits to having all of them in writing. A lot of them indeed already have written answers. And we'll make it a mix of indeed the most voted questions, as well as some of the questions that piqued our interest and that we've starred and thought would be worth bringing up. So we'll spend about 10 minutes doing that. Then I would like to, after that, would like to give the floor to our business owners for a few words before we indeed go into wrap up, and indeed we'll close by leaving open a survey for your feedback. So just going by most voted questions, and I see more votes are coming in. Will EPI implementation affect how PI are submitted in the ECTD module 1.3.1? And I believe I can give that question to Elizabeth.
Thank you, Joris. I'm Elizabeth, the PO, along with Evan for EPI. We have very much focused on providing electronic product information for patients and healthcare professionals and the dissemination side of the story. Of course, EPI starts at the beginning of the procedure and product information goes through the procedure, but now with the MVP, we're really focusing on creating the EPI and disseminating it. In terms of the submission to the ECTD, we're touching that as little as possible. At the moment, in the current minimal implementation, the company will indicate in ECTD the ID of the EPI they create, but it will still be required to submit the Word and PDF documents, and the Word will be used for assessment. The EPI will be disseminated to patients and healthcare professionals, and of course, implementing EPI will pave the way for future digitalization more along the workflow.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. So the next question was actually the first question we received, and that is indeed Armand saying, I recently had a Unicom webinar that stated PLM Portal will consume structured data from PMS in a stepwise approach. Can you provide a timeline for that stepwise approach? Perhaps, Marcos, what can we say about timing for this, or can we say anything about timing? Marcos, do you?
Okay, I've been talking like for 2 minutes alone. Sorry, now I hope you can hear me.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, so as I was saying, the PLM portal is actually made by different systems. So we have the EAF, we also have the product UI, in the future we will also have EPI. So the data that we will have in the PLM portal for the product UI will be coming from PMS, but the data that is in PMS is already structured. Now, how this data is going to be used, for example, by EAF, yeah, there is a stepwise approach because now we only have CAP data that is used by EAF. In the near future, we will have also non-CAP data coming from PMS that will be also used by the EAF. But apart from that, we will also release the product UI. So all this structured data will be seen in the PLM portal. Now, how this structured data is going to be used, that is also timelines related to EAF and how they are going to implement the structure changes. We are working on those timelines. We need to put in place different enablers, and there are other features that maybe from the EAF side has a bigger priority. So we are working on those timelines, but for the moment, we cannot really release a very concrete timeline saying, yeah, Q2, blah, blah, blah. This is something that we don't have for the moment, but we are working on that.
Thank you, Marcus, for that response. Then the next question indeed was, as EMA implements the new CRM, Regulatory Procedure Management, you mentioned that many NCAs are also implementing their own CRM systems. How widespread is this amongst NCAs, and do they also have a plan to integrate those systems with PMS? Now, I know that in writing, Noel Diamant, our network product owner, indeed gave a response. Unfortunately, indeed, Noel had to drop off the call. So I mean, and just indeed looking at my colleagues and perhaps also Carl, whether there's indeed colleagues that want to speak to this briefly, while indeed also indeed telling the audience that we will commit indeed to provide or we have a full answer in writing to also share with you after the session.
Yeah, I can briefly comment, Joris. I think this also is a nice question to also go back to the vision a little bit, because what we're doing here in many cases is creating enabling technology, but we also understand that the European Medicines Regulatory Network is a very diverse network with lots of different sized agencies with different stages of needs and priorities. So we do know that 11 NCAs who are working as part of Unicom are working to implement ISO IDMP, and that's really going to enable this exchange of information with PMS. I believe also in Noel's response, he mentioned that they did a survey recently and 7 NCAs are working to integrate the EAF FHIR standard into their systems. So we can see this integration is starting to happen. Although the pace of different NCAs adopting it will vary, of course, depending on their needs. But we want to really create that capability for that integration to happen as and when possible. Maybe one final comment is we know that the National Competent Authority, some have expressed the desire to be able to enrich PMS data, etc., in the future and really work towards this master data for the network. So that's something as well that will mature over time.
Thank you. Then the final one we'll take from the highest rated ones. And again, everything is going to get a written answer. Who owns the data in PMS, and will we be able to change them? Is it EMA? Is it NCAs? Is it industry? Could we have a situation that a marketing authorization holder and a national competent authority have to perform a variation based on data which has been modified by EMA? Marcos, is there something that we can say about that?
We can say a lot of things, yeah. So I think one of the good things that Agile has is the way that we can deliver in different steps, different enablers, and we can have also different discussions with the stakeholders. So for the moment, only SciAMed and Exilin PD data will be part of PMS and is the data that will be used in the variation form. So obviously, yes, there will be a situation where an MA holder and an NCA will perform a variation with data that might have been, let's say, modified by EMA. The good thing is that not structure changes are used for the moment. So it's only the current and proposed fields will be filled by the applicants as they are filled now. So there shouldn't be any conflict, not even with the MA holder, the NCA, or EMA. There shouldn't be any problem. Now we have to discuss with our SMEs the process, and this is what we had on the presentation. What's the validation strategy that we will implement? We know from industry that they don't want to have the same approach as for Exilin PD. I don't personally want it as well, so this is something that we will try to avoid. We will hear all the stakeholders how this validation process is going to be done. Who is able to change the data? What's the process to change the data? So these are discussions that will take place, and please make sure that we will hear all the stakeholders, NCAs, industry, and also EMA on how are we going to do that. But for the moment also, please also make sure or be sure that there shouldn't be any discrepancy or any problem on the variations that you will send using the new EAF. So this is for the moment what we can say, taking into account that we also need to run the surveys and everything.
Great. Thank you, Marcos. Then 2 questions were starred by myself and by colleagues. One is indeed around the validation strategy developed after central products is uploaded in PMS and perhaps already used. How will this process look like when only invalidated data is available? I'm afraid I'm going to have to bounce this one to you as well, probably, Marcos.
Yeah, so again, this is related to the validation strategy that we are discussing. It is not true that only invalidated data is available, and we will have this discussion again with the SMEs. So it's quite similar to the answer that I provided before. So please make sure that we are discussing this with the SMEs. There will be a validation strategy, and we will have validated data. Something that I also discussed a couple of days before. It is different legacy data and new products in the system. We will provide information on all that. Unfortunately, now we don't have a lot of time to go deep into that, but make sure that we will come back to you with all the information on validation, the strategy of the validation of data, etc., etc.
Thank you, Marcos. So final question. I'll answer that myself actually, just because it's this is one variation of 3 or 4 questions we received. But by all means, colleagues, you can jump in. But indeed, will EPI be integrated at all with the EAF portal related to the proposed changes, or will the integration only be made with PMS? So just I picked up this question just to clarify that the moment indeed there's not such a thing as the EAF portal. There is the PLM portal, our product lifecycle management portal, and indeed one of the functionalities, so one of the products available on it, indeed is the electronic application forms. The other one, or another one, is going to be the electronic product information and the product UI. So the PLM portal, much like the Iris portal, is going to be a portal indeed where different products and indeed where you can do different tasks related to with EMA, and indeed also for your in a lot of cases for your nationally authorized product applications and interfaces. So it's the PLM portal, not the EF portal, and yes, EPI will be part of that. Will not be a separate website, nor will the product UI. All of that will be available on the PLM portal. With that, again, I'm going to close the live Q&A and indeed offer the floor to our business owners, and indeed wanted to I see Alexi there, and I would like to invite Alexi perhaps to share indeed a few words before indeed handing over the floor to Ivo, and we conclude with Zaid, and finally indeed I'll hand over the floor to Carl to close us while we pop up the survey as well.
It's amazing to see how these various pieces come together to form a whole, and we see the challenge of integrating all of this, and it's a massive program and very ambitious aim that we have. And I just want to project us to a future where all of these things are more advanced than maybe they are today. And the crown jewel of this is the product management system. It's the single source of information of data about products for the European Union. And the vision is that this resource will feed in all sorts of various processes and be available to support all regulation across the EU. So that has been the vision, and it's of course a challenging journey because it's a complex area. We have lots of data and lots of different processes across the regulatory network to be supported by PMS. So this is really the cornerstone, I would say, of the entire picture. And then I think one of the challenges is that products are just a snapshot in a point in time. They need to evolve along the life cycle of medicine. This information changes. So this is where the electronic application forms in, being informed by the data that we have and the changes that need to be done. So that will then allow to submit updated data to PMS, thereby increasing the quality of the data that we receive as regulators. And then we need to manage the authorizations around these submissions. And this is where, for the centralized procedure, we have IRIS coming in, where the idea is that all regulatory procedures will be managed by IRIS and thereby validate the correct information in PMS for centralized procedures. And there's also a discussion on how to achieve this for non-centralized products. But this is the vision. The whole idea is processes to support and feed from the product management system as the unique source of information of product data for the EU. Looking forward, how we realize this vision, and looking back a few years, we have made huge progress already. It's always good to look back to see how much progress there is. Looking only forward, we always think it's still very challenging, but we have gone a long way since we started this journey. Over.
Thank you, Alexi. I'll offer the floor to Ivo to also share a few words from perhaps the veterinary perspective.
Oh, thank you very much, Joris. And of course, as you can expect, I'm going to say a few things about the UPD, Union Product Database. Thanks, Bejan, for presenting it. Union Product Database is the core system indeed, which is coming straight from the new veterinary medicinal products regulations. It is a system that is embedded in the regulation, and it is at the core of a number of processes that we need to do, like pharmacovigilance, collection of use and sales data for antimicrobials, and all that obviously relies on having the complete overview. The Union Product Database contains all the veterinary medicinal products that are currently on the market in Europe, approximately 47,000 entries. And then what comes into play, and it's been mentioned in this meeting as well, is the quality of that data, because the quality then becomes pivotal to the success of it. And in order to have continuous improvement of the quality, and to improve the quality right now, because we do know there's a very variable quality in there, we've established a data quality framework by which we can identify where there are gaps or incomplete data in the system, or data that would not fit in very well with the agreed format. And in that way support the member states, because the member states are ultimately responsible for uploading the correct product data in the database, and they are in principle the only ones that can change those data for the Union product database. We built this system in a very, very short time, but if and when it works, and that's recognized also by the national competent authorities and by the marketing authorization holders, it will potentially save a lot of time, because it will only ask for a single entry of, let's say, crucial data that then can be reused and recycled throughout the life cycle of a product. And I think this is what the whole PLM value stream is about. And thanks to all the colleagues for their excellent presentations, where you could see that all these connections are, and how we try to achieve this and how we build the system. And in principle, I would say there should be no difference between how it's being built on the human and on the veterinary side, in order also to maximize the applicability of those systems. So electronic application forms, electronic product information, even though currently not available for everything, in the future should become available for all products in the European Union. So I think if this value stream delivers, it is in the interest of the whole network and of the marketing authorization holders, and also of our most important stakeholders, the European public. And with that, we'd like to give back to you, Joris.
Thank you, Ivo. And I'm going to give the floor straight to Zaid to also say a few words.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of you that connected to this important deep dive, and thank you, Joris, as well. My name is Said Diaz. I'm the head of the Digital Business Transformation Task Force here at EMA, and was also appointed EMA chair of the portfolio board at the beginning of the year. So just to put it into context, I understand you've all been heavily engaged in this PLM deep dive, but what I'd like to do in the next minute is actually to go back to what brought us actually here to allow for such a rich debate. And I need to go back to 2021, where the management board of the EMA actually decided or agreed to pursue the agile transformation. And as a result of this endorsement, we actually embarked at the EMA in a fundamental transitioning of any program and project into what we call now an EU network portfolio, but also one that is organized according to value streams. And I'd like to emphasize the word value stream, because it's exactly that. So the whole transitioning resulted in a network portfolio organized around 5 value streams, which fundamentally reflect the purpose and mission of the EMA, but also the EU network. And I think that's quite important. And they have been designed to fundamentally deliver on the European Medicines Regulatory Network strategy. Fundamentally to deliver on all the strategic elements that are included there. So what we set up is actually 5 value streams, and I think it's important because today you hear about one. So you have the R&D value stream, you have the product lifecycle management at stake today. We have a monitoring value stream. We have one that covers the managing the agency, and finally, but also not least, technology lifecycle management and information security value streams. What I also wanted to mention is that, of course, a strategy is one thing, but you need to also be flexible and be able to adapt to the environment. And I think the whole agile transformation is also providing that kind of flexibility. Then maybe also to quickly say that we also embarked on setting up various and very new ways of communicating with our stakeholders, but also across this network. And I think you've heard several network POs speaking today, but also SMEs. So basically, I think we set up channels not only for strategic discussions, but also system demos, for example, to showcase the tactical solutions, and others to allow product teams to allow for more operational discussions. So all in all, I think the whole agile transformation has led to a fundamental rethink in collaboration, unprecedented levels of transparency, I must say, And I think very importantly is that we in all these fora also listen to the needs and try to fine tune. And I think the deep dive is a very nice example of this. We heard that there was a kind of a need to bring it all together in a kind of slightly higher level, a deeper level of detail on that particular value stream. Now, of course, it's one in a series. As I mentioned, there are 4 more value streams, and I think you can just look forward also into the next year that we have similar deep dives across other value streams. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Zaid. Then I'd like to offer the floor to Carl for a few closing words and let everyone know that in Slido a feedback poll is open that we'd very much appreciate if you could respond to.
Thanks, Joris. So I'll make a very brief conclusion. We're just finishing just over time. I just want to thank everyone for joining the session today or for viewing the recording if you're viewing this later after November. And I also want to thank all the product teams and the value stream leadership team and the business owners today for all the delivery work, but also for preparing this session. We aim to connect the dots today. We hope you find it did that. We said deep dive. It's a deep dive, but with a snorkel. We didn't want it to be a deep dive with an oxygen tank. If you want more information on the individual products, there are lots of sessions and webinars planned that go into a lot more level of detail, and we invite you to join those. With that, I'd like to wish you a good rest of the day, and thank you again for joining.